Hey there, welcome to episode 110 of the Let's Innovate for Vegas audio program. I am your host, Managing Director of the Innovate for Vegas Foundation, Dan Hugo. We are recording this, episode 110 already, on Tuesday, March 25, 2025. It's about 10:30 in the morning. Today we are going to be speaking about adding initiatives. Someone who knows might say, what? Adding? We'll get to that. If you're not familiar, the Innovate for Vegas Foundation is indeed a Nevada nonprofit corporation, a 501c3 public charity. Our purpose is to enable and encourage ideation, innovation, and implementation to make our communities better. Civic volunteerism is the name of the game. Our pay is horrible. We are 100% volunteer top to bottom, including myself as the managing director. If you're not familiar with what civic volunteerism is, it is essentially people volunteering their time, effort, and expertise to work on community elevation projects. Sometimes those projects are driven by external sponsors or partners, municipal partners as is one term that's thrown around. All of our efforts so far are self-driven, so we get to add initiatives whenever we want, which is what we'll talk about today. Hopefully, wherever you have found this audio program, you're able to locate the episode description, which includes the show notes, a summary which I will read to you, and a few show or episode links. Today is the usual 4, which I'll go through as usual. If this is your first time listening, do be aware that we have 110 episodes. There's plenty of stuff that we've covered over this is season 2. We started with season 0, so 110 episodes. A lot of stuff going on since our founding, officially a Nevada nonprofit in June of 2022, but we really got the ball rolling at the beginning of 2022. So that was January-ish, somewhere in there. So we've been around, but we're still young, coming up on 3 years old. Our fiscal year does end on June 30th, July 1st, June 30th, though, technically, at which time we will update our governance with the state. And we'll file our 990 with the IRS, and then we'll get on with the next year of adventure. So let's get to it. The show notes, the episode summary. Why on earth would we add yet more initiatives to our already full plate? Well, the best time to lay some groundwork for the coming years might be when things are moving slowly, which is now, so that we can establish a broad range of possibilities for our future cadre of civic volunteers to consider when we have this calm before the storm, perhaps. So essentially, what? You're adding more initiatives? Yes, now is the time. So what are those links? Every episode has included a few links at the beginning. These are the Innovate for Vegas Foundation homepage, available at Innovate for Vegas, FOR, no spaces or other punctuation. Innovate for Vegas, and then a period, and then org. There you will find some basic information about our various initiatives as they are so far. We're in the midst of a kind of a redesign to try to make it easier to integrate information from our various initiatives directly from our various initiative repositories and so on. So it's all part of the Agile for Volunteers integration effort, which will always be ongoing forever, probably, because everything is always susceptible to iterative improvement and learning from what may not have been working so well to make it better. So Innovate for Vegas Foundation, innovateforvegas.org, always looking to make it better, easier, more accessible, etc. projectact.info, that's project hyphen or dash if you like, act, A-C-T, project-act.info. That's some information about the Project Act, which is our autonomous cohort tessellation. Also, not really formerly, but also just not the top tier focus. The autonomous cohort transformation, I'll touch on this later, but essentially we started Project Act when Code for America brigades were maybe becoming restless or interested in breaking away from top-down management and the structure of the brigade system and so on. So this came up as a possibility to enable and encourage individual cohorts to become independent entities, as we are. When we rebooted Code for Vegas, which we renamed to Innovate for Vegas, we did not rejoin Code for America, which was the case with the original Code for Vegas. We formed our own independent 501c3 and never actually became a brigade again. So we were getting some questions about how to do that, or what's the benefit and so on. So Project ACT started out as transformation and now tessellation. Tessellation is a mosaic. If you can imagine a nice collection of tiles on an attractive wall or other installation that showcases the cohorts around the country, around the world perhaps, literally as icons or avatars if you like, but generally speaking, an indication or visualization or some other form of information sharing if you're not visually inclined, so that people know that there are other people out there volunteering their time, effort, and expertise for community elevation endeavors. And the same with the projects or initiatives. If you're following our Agile for Volunteers lexicon, the need to publicize or advertise or celebrate, recognize the work of civic volunteers is important and often underlooked as opposed to overlooked. It is underappreciated. How about that? It is something that it's overlooked, I guess, also. It's something that we should pay attention to so that people who do spend their time, effort, and expertise on these efforts at least get found. And Project ACT is aiming to enable discovery so that we can reach a more productive connection, communication, and collaboration framework across different localities. So we'll talk about that a little bit more later. I've talked about this in previous episodes, though. Hopefully, if this is your first time listening, hopefully you'll take a moment. agileforvolunteers.org, Agile for Volunteers, all one word, again, FOR, Agile for Volunteers, period, org, O-R-G, is our separated, general use Agile for Volunteers initiative. So there's a separate GitHub organization if you're a GitHub type person. Agile for Volunteers as an external initiative hopefully will attract some attention and maybe some participation, maybe some adopters, so that we can make a not only software, whole team iterative approach to projects that are, or initiatives that are undertaken by volunteers. So where the original Agile on which this is based, not the Agile of the Agile industrial complex that nobody seems to enjoy anymore. I get that. I'm probably in that group. But the original methodologies, the initial principles of Agile from 2001 were not about you must have stand-up meetings, but were really about how can we incorporate the whole team so that everybody's on board and a part of what's happening, so that we can all benefit from that understanding and from that interest and that communication. And the whole team includes your customers, your end users, the people that you are doing this for. So in the world of volunteerism, you would hope that the people out in the world are at least part of the recognition of the people that are doing the work. And hopefully they even want to participate a little bit, at least as testers or helping to make the effort worthwhile. So Agile for Volunteers will play a role in that and is not directly related, but orthogonally related to Project ACT. So if you look at the Project ACT as the x-axis and Agile for Volunteers as the y-axis, they may be able to help each other to some sort of escape to infinity over time. But they are not directly related. But they do each have their own website because that's how we roll. And finally, Mastodon for Vegas. Mastodon Vegas, VEGAS, just like it sounds, is going to be an integral part of the MyMuni and Welcome initiatives and a part of some other things. So it's part of our communication concept for a smarter smart city. So starting with ActivityPub, which is an open source protocol that shares notifications and subscriptions and updates in general of activity stream content and users and so on, making that an integral part of city scale, smarter smart city scale interaction among not only its local population, but the people who are maybe virtual locals, the 40 million or so people who visit Vegas. So having a locality oriented social media platform that is not owned by a third party, a disinterested third party, will be a part of an experiment to see if locality-driven engagement can provide more value in general. So we will start with that already functioning platform and go from there and see how we can integrate that with our other initiatives. So that's it. Those are the usual 4. And I will point out, by the way, if you happen to listen to this episode, the Agile for Volunteers website has gotten a slight tune-up. So there's the About page and the homepage are now following the same general layout as our Innovate for Vegas homepage. There will be some more stuff over time. It does indeed use the classic Twitter origin bootstrap for layout. Not ideal perhaps in the modern time. There's nothing particularly wrong with bootstrap, but you do kind of get stuck in the bootstrap design philosophy if you're not careful. So our publication pipeline to turn Markdown and other content, editable content, source materials into public-facing websites is on the list. There are plenty of platforms that do this, so why not one more? Now, owning your pipeline, it has a certain amount of value, so we'll see where that leads. So where are we today? The Agile for Volunteers and Project ACT initiatives, which I've described, need more work, which would be great to share. My first typo. Not so share, to share. It would be great to share these the work or the needed work with some other participants, but for the moment, our cohort has a few empty chairs, more than a few. If you will, still, these 2 initiatives underpin our basic workflow management to make the most of civic volunteer time, effort, and expertise, and to hopefully make outreach and collaboration across the civic volunteer terrain, beyond Nevada in our case, well, easier. So Agile for Volunteers to make the most of the volunteer time, effort, and expertise, and Project ACT to basically and hopefully enable and encourage the connection, communication, and collaboration beyond your locality. It remains to be seen if this will happen, but hopefully the whole thing will get a bit easier in both cases to not only work and make the most of volunteer time, which should be treated like gold because it can't be treated like dollars or currency, not in an all-volunteer organization, but also make it easier and more likely that there will be some sort of value, return on investment, if you like, from reaching out across locality, local boundaries, if there are any. Some of our current initiative plans are core so that they can be reused or at least used for as the basis for development of other initiatives, at least from the software perspective. So, for example, our own infrastructure, like websites, publication pipelines, documentation, onboarding, discussion and infrastructure tools and tooling and configuration. So enabling discussions and issue tracking for our organization itself and for onboarding and so on, core tools for working with and between our other initiatives and so on. That's a core thing. So our infrastructure as a core initiative is kind of meta, small m, if you like. Our open data capture platform is intended to make it easier, or at least easier, to add data to open data datasets, whether they are owned and managed by the city of Las Vegas, which was the reason or one of the outcomes of the original Code for Vegas a decade or so ago, or if it's our own open data sets, or maybe they get together, maybe they merge in some way. Who knows? And Smart Social is a base onto which MyMuni and Welcome can be assembled and extended. Smart Social, not necessarily social networking like Mastodon or Twitter or TikTok, but Smart Social as in connecting humans and the data of society and interactions with technology and maybe some AI nowadays. So Smart Social is actually putting the human tech interaction to good and hopefully valuable use. So the modern day social networking, not the corporate owned social media that we find ourselves dealing with. Then there are initiatives that are more like applications that will hopefully take advantage of these underpinnings, which could operate as standalone and could even be little startups in keeping with our labs commercialization path idea. MyMuni and Welcome pair are an example of this. Open Transit is an example of this. vLocal is probably an example of this. That's the virtual or Vegas local privacy-aware identity management and other use cases platform. Challengers, Talks, and For. Those are challengers.vegas, talks.vegas, and for.vegas. They all have domains, and those are getting more and more expensive. Are somewhere in there. Challengers is for people, individuals or teams, cohorts that take on usually a competitive, possibly with prizes, kind of like hackathons, but not exactly. So people who take on these challenges are challengers, and our Smarter Smart City will benefit by recognizing and celebrating these efforts and the individuals that are making those efforts. Right now, good luck. Good luck discovering who, maybe a high school team or maybe even younger, who participated in the Congressional Apps Challenge this year, who was a part of the NASA Space Apps Challenge, who took part in a Smart City Design Challenge, who took part in the Sphere Exo Design Challenge, etc. So usually these are tucked away, difficult to find, even if you know what you're looking for. We should make that easier in our Smarter Smart City. Same with Talks. Let's enlighten, educate, and entertain by talking about interesting things, the story of the people that make the greater Vegas area. And for.vegas, let's tack on a subdomain, volunteer for Vegas, connect for Vegas, pick your favorite subdomain possibility. So basically an extendable and extensible platform for connecting the individuals and groups and entities that make up Greater Vegas. And there's more, but we can keep it simple today. So what about those new initiatives that we're talking about? And by the way, I'll point out that initiative, we used to call things projects. So it was the Open Transit Project, it was the Open vLocal project, but each of these projects has like subcomponents and whatnot. So now if you think of a top level initiative, and this is a word that's commonly used, this is not an invention. So an initiative that we call Open Transit will have component projects like the web application, or maybe a local, native application. So maybe a Mac application on a desktop, or maybe a iPhone application on a mobile, or an Android application, or a Linux application, or maybe it's all web browser based, mobile web browser based. So those are sort of different variations on a theme. And then there's the stuff that needs to run on the server, the application logic and the databases, and maybe some operations tools and whatnot. So the initiative is made up of several component projects. So we're kind of a distinction without a difference maybe, but just for using words effectively and having a common reusable language is one of those things that makes something like Agile for Volunteers work better, if we all know what we're talking about. So hopefully we get there soon. So what about the first new initiative to add to our list? Let's add Lost and Found as a service. That sounds weird. Our first new initiative is actually a startup idea that I personally took through a summer accelerator at my alma mater, Harvey Mudd College, in the summer of 2020. And we all know what year that was. Quite a year. So June, probably, was it June or July? It was sometime during the summer. It was like a 12-week accelerator program. Hey, we were all sitting at home. Why not? So it was virtual. My non-technical co-founder here in the Vegas area bailed, not feeling up to participating in this. So, okay, that's fine. So it was just me and most of the people acting in mentor roles, the advisors and mentors that were trying to help make this accelerator effort go somewhere. Did not seem to get the whole idea. They were kind of dubious, but other participants in the cohort did seem to get it, which was encouraging. So they kind of did that makes, of course. So maybe that was a question of entrepreneurial exuberance versus I feel as though I've been there and done that and I don't understand what you're talking about. So I kind of got that sense. But basically the concept is to provide a lost and found, or lost and found services, not but a few services as a platform, which could, let me fix that typo, not cold, which could be integrated into an existing service or maybe events in a consistent way to, say, connect people with their belongings. This sounds sort of boring, but imagine you are at a trade show like CES here in Vegas, one of the largest trade show or convention events that we have each year, January, and you drop something near one of the thousands of booths across a multiple convention venue, like different halls and so on, maybe even hotels, resort suites and so on. It's a big show. So you drop something or you leave something, you set it down and you forget to pick it up, whatever it is. And then someone else says, oh, someone left this here. Who does this belong to? Well, that person's already gone. Or maybe you're already gone. Now what? Now now I got to go find some lost and found thing. Well, I can't do that until later. So I'll just let it sit here. Oh, and then I forgot. So how do you connect, people and their property that they left behind without the ability to go meander through the Las Vegas Convention Center or whichever resort the suite happens to be at, whatever it is, whatever the case may be. So we all have these phones in our pockets. Why are we not putting those to use? So Lost and Found is a service for connecting people and their property. So not really boring, quite practical. Now what, right? So I've connected with the person. Hey, I found your tchotchke, your tchotchka, however you pronounce that word. I found your bag of stuff from Cisco, or your USB cables that you got as promotional items from the Microsoft booth, whatever the case may be. So you're not going to go find the Lost and Found office. Neither party probably will. It's a big giant show. So the workflow easily disruptible because we have these mobile devices. So why not connect people? Everybody's at the same show. It's not like, hey, I found a thing. Maybe the person is at the Durango Resort at the south end of the local area. So probably geographically proximal. So we should take advantage of that and connect people with mobile devices. So that's the general idea. More important though, and the inspiration for the initial idea that was in the accelerator timeframe, was to apply the same sort of disruptive convenience and streamlining not only to missing pets, which could also use that. It's a problem still addressed today with signs taped to light poles. I try to take pictures of them when I see them to remind myself that this is still a problem that could be solved, or at least addressed in a practical and somewhat standardized way at city scale, not neighborhood scale, yes, but city scale too, so that there becomes a consistent and easily navigable way to say, oh, I lost my pet, or I left behind a thing. The example I would usually give is if you're out and about, you're in Vegas, you're visiting for a trade show or some other event, and you're out on the town and you forget to recover your credit card, you're leaving the next morning, and you think to yourself, I don't know which place where I left. I was out with my colleagues. I was doing the Vegas thing, and I got to leave. I don't want to cancel my card because how can the person that found your card connect with you? Well, they can just type it into our platform, and then you might say, oh, let me see if anybody found it. Oh, you did. You connect the finder and the person that perhaps misplaced or mislaid the item. Same with pets. You can post on a light pole. Maybe you still should. But why not say, hey, here's my pet. And then someone else says, hey, I found this pet, but it's not chipped and it doesn't have tags. Shame. But so how can I connect with them? Oh, this pet made a 5-mile journey. How did they get into my neighborhood? They departed the yard of someone way up on the north side of the city, et cetera, et cetera. So connecting those two services, they're fundamentally the same. They're not the same. Losing a pet, not the same as setting down a mug, but practically not too far off. And then a smart city should be able to make this whole process more tech-friendly to take advantage of the tools we have. And why not also apply the same thing once it's working with pets and property to people, which is a problem mishandled frequently using social media tools. How often have you seen someone sharing and resharing a missing persons report? And when you actually take the time to dive in on the details, oh, this person was found 6 months ago, whatever the outcome might be. But you're resharing. This is not helping anything. You're actually distracting people from active missing persons cases. So putting those to better use. And I will say that I have spoken with people from FEMA. They basically manage or oversee or need to interact with the Amber Alert system, which varies state to state. So they actually expressed some interest in making that easier would be valuable. Unfortunately, it's not blazingly profitable. So it probably will be left to a community elevating civic volunteer organization. Maybe it's Innovate for Vegas Foundation. So yeah, a smarter smart city such as ours, when it gets smarter, should be able to, at the least, it should be a place where we can have these experiments take place. So starting with property and also working with pets. So we don't want to experiment on missing people. That's just not the way to do things. So we can use the tools we have at our disposal, and there is just simply no better place to try this out with so many visitors from so many different places, so many trade shows, so many pets, and then sadly, so many problems with missing and trafficked people. So we can tackle these things in a consistent way so that we end up with a go-to initiative, hopefully a positive outcome, and that would just be available to anyone, not a profit driver, but a community elevation driver. Second, let's add discovery and connection for localities. So the Greater Vegas area famously siloed, not isolated, but certainly insular. People tend to not know what, I'll say, the left hand and the right hand are doing, but there could be different parts of different neighborhoods and towns. And we basically have unincorporated areas within Clark County. You probably think you're in Las Vegas, but you're not. So connecting and discovering and so on. And it's sort of the same thing that Project ACT is trying to accomplish. Project ACT is about discovery among cohorts of one or more people working on similar initiatives or possibly similar initiatives and projects of various kinds to enable and encourage connection, communication, and collaboration beyond geographical proximity, although it may actually be geographically proximal. Like, how do you discover each other? How do you know that you don't know what to look for or who, where? You just know I'm working on this, and I'm looking for someone who might be interested in working on this also. So we start from that premise. Avoiding the noise of Google-like search, which tends to give you everything and prioritized in perhaps not so useful ways. And without the likelihood of physically encountering potential colleagues with similar interests and focus, we need to aid this discovery process. So if you're all located in the same neighborhoods and you're going to walk by each other and you say, are you working on something like this also? But we don't really have that. And if you simply type I'm working on Lost and Found as a service into the internet, who knows what you're going to get. So basically a little bit smarter discovery mechanism between people, because Project ACT is trying to do that between cohorts and projects or initiatives. So what about between people? So relying on Meetup or Eventbrite or similar, or far worse, in my opinion, ads on Instagram or Facebook or other social media platforms to cast a wide connection net for social, business, and community health engagement is broken. If we intend to in any way pursue this smart city concept beyond the very basics of basics, here in the Greater Vegas area, human elements like connection of missing pets, people, and property with their loved ones and owners is certainly important, but so is providing some sort of baseline connection between people who might be looking for something in particular or who might just be looking for something, just something. So what do you do with that? Do you just wander through meetup.com and see what kind of meetups are happening or which ones are still happening, or, they're just transactional networking events, people trying to get clients? Like that's not as good. Leaving this community service to large national brands, either purpose-built as Meetup is, though poorly, and I've mentioned this before. I attended they actually happened to host a engineering meetup so that the general public could interact with the people who were building and maintaining and hopefully improving the Meetup.com platform. So I attended that meeting, and I was never more certain that what they were working on was not great. Sorry to judge, but I was just not left encouraged. And certainly not Instagram and others. These are not platforms built to connect people. They're platforms built to monetize views. And they have algorithms designed to do that. And they have paid advertising to make the most of that, I suppose. But this removes any sense of local value from the whole thing. Like open transit, if the people running the platform, so the civic volunteers that are developing and improving and continuing open transit here in Greater Vegas, they might actually use it. They might actually encounter others who are also using and benefiting from this effort. The value proposition and the return on contribution of volunteer time, effort, and expertise becomes that much more tangible. Rather than just seeing Instagram, IG, oh, did you check out my reel? No, I met the person that's building this thing. And when people out and about can run into the individuals putting in that effort, the value of that effort becomes that much more evident. Oh, I know the people that are trying to make this better. I'm going to give them a suggestion. I'm going to tell them I found a little spelling error. I'm going to tell them this could be easier to navigate. It could be more clear. I could tell them that their language translation was wrong. You involve the community in the tools that are elevating that community. Co-creation for the win. So adding some discovery elements will hopefully bring together more people to work on the tools, but also more people to engage with each other in more useful ways in a platform that is purpose-built by the people in the communities. Meetup.com doesn't necessarily care about people meeting up in Vegas. They just care about having more people using their tools to meet up whoever, wherever, however. I don't mean to make them sound cold, but as a business, that's what you're trying to do. But as a service for a smarter smart city and a reusable platform that could be used in any locality, our engagement is with our friends and neighbors, the people that we run into and encounter and who maybe we would like to meet in our day-to-day. So ours can be a purpose-built platform for our locality, not just generically monetizing people finding each other or finding ways to engage with others of similar interests. So it does align somewhat with Project ACT, but it's a little bit different. So there are other initiative potentials, not just the two I've discussed here today. All of our initiatives, which we used to refer to as projects, as usual, are self-directed. That is, for the moment, we have not, typo there. We've not been waiting for a third party to provide a starting point or to drive any efforts. So this was the old way. Municipal partners and so on. Anyway, I don't want to get too far down that rabbit hole. But this is not necessarily the way civic volunteer efforts were driven in the brigade days. But moving forward, I mean, they did, but they also could work on their own projects, from my understanding. But moving forward, it makes sense to allow, even advocate for local civic volunteers developing and pursuing ideas that suit their friends and neighbors from whom they encounter every day. Day to day, sometimes weekly. The customers, also known as these friends and neighbors, can drive this effort, not third-party business or agency interests. If a single third-party entity, whether it's a company or an agency, a government agency or a non-government agency, is driving something, you're always subject to their inputs, which may or may not be aligned with what the cohort wants to or is capable of doing. But if you are talking to your friends and neighbors and people that you encounter, now there's a human element. You're not being told what to do. You're being asked if this is possible. Can someone do this? And so on. And so there tends to be a little bit more of an appreciative nature behind all this. If you're, oh, wow, you're working on this. I use it all the time. It'd be cool if this could be better. But if you have a sponsor or driving relationship with a third party, it may or may not be the same. And I'm not saying that those are not possible and that we would never pursue those. But for the moment, all of our initiatives are actually self-driven. So ideally, as our cohort size increases with time, that's a hint, the whole team, capital W, capital T, the whole team approach that is integral to Agile for Volunteers and Agile, which some people forget in the Agile industrial complex of today, the whole team approach can make the possibilities to take on our local challenges that much more apparent. So we include people who say, I wish somebody could fix this. Well, do you want to be a part of fixing that by being in the conversation? Well, I'm not a coder. No. You just have to be a person who's interested in finding a solution and be a part of the co-creation effort, the whole team. Not only to our cohort of contributors, but also to our fellow locals to offer this whole team engagement. And by extension, anyone who would benefit from some attention from any civic volunteer cohort, thanks to Project ACT. So we would like to extend our reach, our connection, communication, and collaboration well beyond our local, I'm not going to say boundaries, but our local area. If we can build up a functioning workflow that connects highly valuable and often undervalued volunteer time, effort, and expertise to real need and the people in our localities who might benefit from addressing these needs, perhaps we can reach a point where our cohort members can drive new initiatives and engagement with the whole team, which includes, well, everybody. And we can use our Agile for Volunteers workflow and tools and methodology, and we can use Project Act to engage others beyond our locality to see if anybody else would like to collaborate and maybe their locality can benefit in similar ways. At least the people we encounter in our daily travels and travails can be a part of this, and then maybe others beyond the people we encounter daily. So the next steps, getting Agile for Volunteers, at least our internal version. So we have the version that we will be working with ourselves, and the public version, they probably won't be too far off. But if Agile for Volunteers does get some attention and perhaps some participation from outside volunteer cohorts or others, it's not specifically for civic volunteer cohorts, but it's basically aimed at people who want to accomplish things that don't have a staff of paid employees, and people who want to work on stuff that isn't necessarily software. So we're trying to make everything general. It's once it is in a truly usable and useful state, it will be a key to all of this so that our vision and direction are clear to any and all who might like to take a look, spend a little bit of time maybe participating, or actually dive in and be a part of any particular initiative, or maybe all of them. So not that Agile for Volunteers is some magic bullet, as the phrase has been used over time, but it's a platform of communication and being fairly specific about what we're trying to accomplish. User stories and features, and then actual tasks, and breaking a project up into a way that's observable, so that if someone happens upon an Innovate for Vegas Foundation initiative like Open Transit, they might say, oh, okay, I can see how this project is laid out. I can see what the user stories are, what they're trying to accomplish. Maybe I can see a place where I can contribute, or maybe I can see where we can collaborate with a project that we're working on. We call it projects over here, you call it initiatives over there. That's fine. That doesn't matter. It's the collaboration, the connection, communication, and collaboration that we would like to see happen. And like I said, Project Act and Agile for Volunteers are orthogonal, but still can benefit from each other. As an army of one lately, though, progress has slowed, especially to give way to some break time. But as we return to our weekly initiative meetup and office hours, online gatherings, I don't know if you knew this, but for the last, I think it was mid-February until the end of March, we switched to like alternating weeks and whatnot. So basically reduce the recurrence, but we will return to weekly for both our initiative meetup and office hours, online gatherings, starting at the first week of April, whatever it is. Check our calendar, our gatherings calendar on our homepage. Hopefully more will come by and check out what we're doing and reach an aha moment or two. Building or rebuilding a cohort can be a challenge, as we've experienced ourselves, and the sense that any cohort is not getting anything done can lead to a feedback loop of frustration. Trust me, we all need to avoid that, which is part of the motivation for Project Act. Not all of the motivation. There are other reasons. There is a general benefit to collaboration beyond local proximity, but knowing that others are also working on similar things, or that there's an easier way to discover each other, hopefully will have some value, and hopefully it will be uplifting for the civic volunteer universe. You may not remember this, but Project Act started out as the Autonomous Corps Transformation, which I mentioned earlier, to work with brigades, and now former brigades, that wanted to move away from dependence on Code for America. This is still a consideration, though now more of a transformation from just starting out to a functioning cohort. So the brigade days ended last year. The program was sunset, so there are no longer any active brigades in the Code for America sense. But there may be a cohort of one that would like to grow and turn into their own standalone nonprofit, or should we get fiscal sponsors? This isn't about legal advice, but it is about essentially establishing a community of been there, done that. How can we help? Something we can all learn about and pursue through some connection, communication, and collaboration. Hey, look at that. Getting a public-facing initiative, most likely MyMuni at this point, is essential for our future customers and perhaps future cohort participants. And remember, customers could be anybody. To reach an aha moment for themselves, to see and understand the value proposition of working with, or maybe even benefiting from, a civic volunteer organization such as ours. And this extends to any locality. It could be anywhere. Then our existing initiatives and hopefully perhaps additional initiatives will lead to tuning and expansion of what we focus and spend our time, effort, and expertise on. So hopefully if once someone says, oh, okay, my Muni I see what you're doing here. Then beyond that, like, hey, I'd like to be involved. Hey, I have some ideas. Hey, I'd like to bring some of those ideas to people who'd like to spend some time, effort, and expertise on them, and so on and so on and so on. So that our communities might be elevated and our smart city might be smarter. And that doesn't mean Vegas only, although as I want to say, you do not need to you don't need to innovate in Vegas to innovate for Vegas. The benefits of collaboration on our initiatives is the 40 million or so people who visit. So hopefully we can engage with different customers, different end users, different people who might be interested in what we're working on, but from different places beyond the greater Vegas area who are here visiting for particular reasons. So we can embrace and make something of the fun economy trademark held by UNLV Office of Economic Development, granted in February of 2025, as luck would have it. So we know we have the fun economy. We know that the greater Vegas area believes itself to be a smart city. So why not make it a smarter smart city and engage with not only our about 2.5 million locals in the Clark County, Southern Nevada area, but also with those 40 million visitors, but also with other civic volunteer individuals and cohorts, so cohorts of one or more people, in other places within the United States or somewhere else who might have similar ideas or similar concerns. Let's get more idea flow, more connection, communication, and collaboration, and perhaps help each other to make communities better beyond our own. So let's put some of that civic volunteer time, effort, and expertise to good use beyond our own backyards. And that is our overarching goal. But hopefully the Lost and Found as a Service and the, I don't know what to call the meetup tools, but I think meetup is taken and probably has a bad or a preconceived notions that may or may not be helpful. But making it a little bit easier for people to, and by the way, finding people online for remote or virtual meetups. And, we have our virtual meetups, so I'm not necessarily discounting those, but sometimes, especially in the post-pandemic time, there's a certain amount of value in actual in-person meetup, and making that happen in a more like integrated way in a particular community or locality might be interesting. So it's an area that we can experiment with. And certainly whatever we do call that could make maximal use of Smart Social and the MyMuni / Welcome, probably in that order. MyMuni for more people local, but let's not forget Welcome, which is aimed at people who are not locals. Welcome, especially in the greater Vegas area, will have a large potential audience. So what about connecting people visiting for other meetups and gatherings of some sort? So who knows? I see a lot of potential there just from an experimental, like, I wonder if this would work perspective. But certainly Lost and Found as a Service has some very practical and human-centric ideas that I think would bring a tremendous amount of value to anywhere. And we should start by working on that here in Vegas. Remember, you do not need to be in Vegas. You can innovate for Vegas without innovating in Vegas. Your participation is always welcome. Thank you so much for listening, as always. And I will leave it there for now. Hopefully you are having a fine week. We'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.